We all have habits we'd like to break, but it often feels like an impossible task. In this video, we're exploring James Clear's 4 laws of behavior change and how they can help us eliminate bad habits for good. Breaking a habit doesn't have to be about willpower or self-control. Instead, it's about understanding how habits work and how we can reverse engineer them. In Atomic Habits, Clear explains that every habit has 4 stages: cue, craving, response, and reward. This cycle fuels both good and bad habits. The first stage, the cue, is a trigger that initiates the habit. It could be as simple as feeling stressed, which might cue the habit of eating junk food. Craving is the next stage, where we feel a desire to relieve stress or discomfort. It's this craving that drives the habit forward. The response is the action we take to satisfy the craving, in this case, reaching for unhealthy snacks. Finally, the reward is the satisfaction we get after fulfilling the habit. Here, it might be a temporary sense of comfort from the food. To break a habit, we need to disrupt this cycle. Clear introduces the 4 laws of behavior change, which we can reverse to help us weaken bad habits. The first law is, make it obvious. For building good habits, this law is about making cues visible. To break a bad habit, we do the opposite. Make the cues invisible. Let's say you want to stop checking your phone first thing in the morning. The cue might be your phone on your nightstand. Try moving it across the room or keeping it in another room altogether. By making the cue invisible, you disrupt the start of the habit loop, making it harder to fall into the habit unconsciously. The second law is, make it attractive. For positive habits, we try to increase appeal, but for breaking bad habits, we need to make them unattractive. Think about a habit you want to break, like procrastination. Often we're drawn to distractions that seem appealing. Make those distractions less attractive by setting specific goals and focusing on what you'll gain by staying on task. To make procrastination unattractive, try visualizing the stress and regret you'll feel if you delay your work. This shift in mindset makes procrastination less appealing. The third law is, make it easy. Good habits become easier by reducing friction, but with bad habits, we need to increase friction to make them harder. For example, if you're trying to stop snacking late at night, put your snacks in a difficult-to-reach place. The added inconvenience can deter you from indulging. Increasing friction can be powerful because it requires more effort to perform the habit. Each barrier we create adds a layer of resistance. Some people even take this a step further by making it impossible to indulge in a bad habit. For instance, if you're trying to avoid social media, consider uninstalling the apps. By making a habit harder to perform, you're less likely to fall into it impulsively. It's about making the path of least resistance the one without the habit. The fourth law is, make it satisfying. For good habits, this law encourages us to add rewards, but for bad habits, we want to make them unsatisfying. One way to make a habit unsatisfying is to associate it with something negative. For example, track how much money you spend on your habit. Watching the expense add up can make the habit less appealing. Creating consequences can also be effective. If you have an accountability partner, let them know about your habit and the consequence if you slip up. This external accountability can make the habit less satisfying. Another strategy is to keep a journal of how you feel after engaging in the habit. Often, reflecting on the guilt or regret can reduce the satisfaction of repeating it. Clear also emphasizes the importance of environment design. By designing your environment, you can remove cues that trigger bad habits and replace them with cues for good ones. For example, if you want to avoid binge-watching TV, keep the remote in a different room. This small change in your environment can reduce the likelihood of falling into that habit. Environment design works because our surroundings shape our behaviors more than we realize. By curating your space, you make good habits easier and bad habits harder. Building a replacement habit is another helpful strategy. Instead of simply trying to quit a habit, replace it with something positive. If you tend to snack when bored, try replacing that habit with drinking water or going for a walk. Over time, your brain will begin to crave the replacement habit instead. Another powerful tool is the 2-minute rule. If you want to break a habit, start by limiting it to 2 minutes. For instance, if you spend hours scrolling on social media, set a timer for 2 minutes and stop when it's up. Limiting the time makes the habit less satisfying, and over time, you may lose the desire to engage in it for longer periods.